Okay, welcome to Negotiating with Jesus. I'm Tom. We're going to talk a little bit more about the book of Mark. We're going to go into a story about a demon-possessed man. Now, I'll just read it, I guess. I'll start with Mark 5, verse 1. I'm going to read through a pretty long section, 20 verses. So let's start with that. And then we'll just talk about stuff, about demon possession and stuff. Jesus restores a demon-possessed man. That is the heading added later to give us helps of context. And like many things in the Bible, we added things to help us study this, the most studied book that there has ever been. And people who support and oppose it, trying to understand what it all means. So, chapter 5, they went across the lake to the, it's not across, I added an ED for some reason. They went across the lake to the region of the Gerasenes. Let's try that again. They went across the lake to the region of the Gerasenes. When Jesus got out of the boat, a man with an impure spirit came from the tombs to meet him. This man lived in the tombs, and no one could bind him anymore, not even with a chain. For he had often been chained hand and foot, but he tore the chains apart and broke the irons on his feet. Maybe with rocks. I don't know about superhuman strength. I'm not really sure. It doesn't go into that detail. No one was strong enough to subdue him. Night and day among the tombs and in the hills he would cry out and cut himself with stones. He did like stones as tools, obviously, to break irons and even break his own skin. When he saw Jesus from a distance, he ran and fell on his knees in front of him. He shouted at the top of his voice, "What do you want with me, Jesus, Son of the Most High God? In God's name, don't torture me." For Jesus had said to him, "Come out of this man, you impure spirit." Then Jesus asked him, "What is your name?" "My name is Legion," he replied, "for we are many." And he begged Jesus again and again not to send him out of the area. A large herd of pigs was feeding on the nearby hillside. The demons begged Jesus, "Send us among the pigs, allow us to go into them." He gave them permission, and the impure spirits came out and went into the pigs. The herd, about 2,000 in number, rushed down the steep bank into the lake and were drowned. Those tending the pigs ran off and reported this in the town and countryside, and the people went out to see what had happened. When they came to Jesus, they saw the man who had been possessed by the legion of demons sitting there, dressed and in his right mind, and they were afraid. Those who had seen it told the people what had happened to the demon-possessed man and told about the pigs as well. Then the people began to plead with Jesus to leave their region. As Jesus was getting into the boat, the man who had been demon-possessed begged to go with him. Jesus did not let him, but said, "Go home to your own people and tell them how much the Lord has done for you and how he has had mercy on you." So the man went away and began to tell in the Decapolis how much Jesus had done for him, and all the people were amazed. Decapolis, I see, means the 10 cities. And there's an area, a region Jesus visited known as the 10 cities. A lot of this in context with something people of that era, that time period, would have understood. They would have known the landscape, the regions. They would have known the things Jesus talked about. So a couple things just to point out is are this demon-possessed man. Did he have superhuman strength? What was this thing that bound him? He could not be bound by chains, things that we could place on him, but he was bound by something. He was possessed. There was a spirit that was on him, and he couldn't shake it, and it was very bad, and it was multiple spirits. These spirits were very afraid of Jesus. In fact, so afraid that in some sense, like Revelation, they knew Jesus was the conquering king. They feared him and feared maybe the lake of fire. Don't torture me. In God's name, if you are God's son, if, in the name of your Father, don't torture us. Because Jesus had said, come out, get out of there. And when they're taken by Jesus, they're probably thinking, is this it, lake of fire? They enjoy the experience of wreaking havoc in the world. So legion, many, was possessing the man. He was living in the tombs. He would cry out. He would cut himself. He would break chains. He had great strength that he could beat back people of normal strength. Probably was terrifying, and that weakens you in some way. And his boldness strengthened him in some way. The demons that possessed him gave him a power, a confidence in a demon, in a world of darkness. Many fear the darkness, but not Satan's legions. They're pretty confident about this, their strength in darkness. You see this portrayed in villain shows, that villains, though there's a sense that everyone gets that the villains lose. Evil can't win. When we see it, we're shocked, we're dismayed. Evil can't win. And yet you see people working within the context of evil, feeling very confident, overconfident, and almost every show that you watch, there's some mix of good and evil, and evil often feels confident and good feels timid, and the whole point of the story is for good to realize its own strength, that good must win. And when we watch many shows, we have a sense that whatever problem the good guy is in, he's got to win. He's got to get out. You can't have a show and have the good guy lose. There must be, even in sacrifice, and I'm not going to give any spoilers, but even in sacrifice, the victory goes to the good. If you watched Endgame, there's some sense that loss occurs, and yet even in loss is victory, and that's one of the senses that you see in Christ, that Jesus gives himself up, gives himself over, even though he has all the power needed for victory. He gives himself over to the hands of men and is killed, and in 3 days rises. There's some unconquerable spirit in good. God is good all the time. So there's an irresistible force in goodness, and there's some kind of conquering of evil that seems inevitable. Come out of this man, Jesus yells. And then Legion, the many, says, rather than kill us, send us into this herd of pigs. So this is an area that wasn't ruled by the Jewish spirit of unclean and clean. The people who were herding the pigs would have been non-Jews. Jews were not too interested in pigs. And a great number, 2,000 pigs. So it may have numbered 2,000 spirits in this possessed man. Because they went into the pigs, and the pigs, maybe not being able to be controlled in the same way that humans are controlled, maybe being possessed. If you're a pig and possessed, maybe you just run. Maybe the possession doesn't work the same with pigs. They just run. And if you ever get a chance to see Jesus at Sight and Sound, a great show, this scene is portrayed, and it's done in a very cool way. It was a nice imaginative scene, and it's eerie and kind of wild. So the pigs run down the bank into the lake or the C, as PVK would say. Look up PVK for great commentary, Paul Vanderklay. If you look him up on YouTube, just rockin' YouTube, in my view. Shout out to you, PVK. Those tending the pigs were very distraught, of course. And they said, in essence, they would have said something like, someone came into our community and is taking the things that we value. This is bacon. This is as much bacon as you can eat. An entire community of bacon and pig roasts. And, they're all upset because a pig roast is a party. If this was some kind of community that enjoyed battling against Jesus, wanted to have some parties, wanted to have things go on as they always did. They wanted to have pigs on hand. For partying and for breakfast, you want a lot of bacon. So they were not pleased with this outcome, that they lost their property. And then coming in and seeing this possessed kind of evil person who was overpowering, to see him in his right mind and, sipping tea with his little pinky up in a nice suit. That is terrifying in itself, because it's turning the world upside down, which Jesus did on a regular basis. And everybody who saw Jesus not only was astonished at his goodness, at his power, at his self-sacrifice, his humility, but then every time he did something, it shook your whole world. It wasn't just that he did little things. He did world-changing things. Things would be turned upside down. What you expected is not what you got, even from a hero. When you see a hero acting, you kind of expect him to kill the villains or to work in some way that is within the world system. And Jesus worked in a way that was outside of everyone's system. He changed things. He turned everything upside down. So this man, sitting there in his right mind, enjoying his life, it is just too much to even take in. They were afraid. They were afraid not only about the loss of their pigs, but this change in this man, and they begged Jesus to leave. Just like the demons begged Jesus to leave them alone. The people were in some collaborative effort with Satan. And I will always get back to this thing, that humans, all of us, love what Satan offered in the Garden of Eden. We love the idea that we could be like God. So the very first story of the Garden of Eden, Satan says, don't you think it would be good to eat this fruit? It would make you like God. Of course, we already were like God, created in his image. What he was saying was, look, God's holding something back. I don't think you can trust him, but you can trust me. Satan says, you can trust me. And not only is God keeping something from you, but my promise to you is that you will be able to decide what's good and evil. God's telling you what to do, but it's taking something away from you, your own will. If you act in God's will, how do you know your will isn't better? And this we are so convinced of, that that agreement is the strongest thing in our lives. It's the idea of Calvinism that we are in some way corrupted in a way that we can't even break out of. We are in agreement that if I can decide what's good and evil, man, I am all in, because everything I do, I'll decide is good. And anything that opposes me, I'll decide is evil. And you can see it in all human conflict. And even in children, if they, there's a toy, the idea that this is mine and I deserve it is the very foundation of our understanding of the world, that we deserve and should, by right, decide, I'm a good person. And that's a statement that we have no way of proving has any truth in it at all. I'm a good person. Everybody says that. Probably, Hitler, the most terrible people, can be convinced. If I get to decide, I'll say that I do things that are good. And to be broken in a way that you actually understand your own part in the evil of the world. G.K. Chesterton one time was asked, "What is wrong with the world?" And he said simply, I am. I am what's wrong with the world. And that was his simple statement. What's wrong with the world? I am. So the people begged Jesus to go. The demons begged Jesus to go. Everyone really is colluding against Jesus. Everyone, even his friends, will turn on him. Jesus stands completely alone in all human history, the only person who can be said, this is God. This is God walking among us, the Word made flesh. So the final thought is Jesus sends the man to be a witness of Jesus' power. And he worked in the cities and told people about what Jesus had done. And all the people were amazed. All the people were amazed. This is the only reasonable reaction to Jesus. Amazing. And these stories, you could hear them over and over. And the only, the proper reaction is, this person is of another world. This is a man who truly is God. We're amazed at what he does. So I would like you at this time to like and subscribe. Put some comments below. I tried to keep the sun out of your eyes. Oh, it was shining there a little earlier. If you have any questions, comments, criticisms, you can put them down below. Hit the notification bell. Do the right thing. I will see you again next time. Negotiating with Jesus. I'm Tom.